I was standing outside Romano's, one of those upscale Italian restaurants where the wine costs more than my weekly grocery bill, with my phone pressed against the window glass, recording every word coming from inside. My hands were shaking so badly I had to brace my elbow against the brick wall to keep the phone steady. I'd come here to catch my husband with his mistress. What I heard instead made me realize I'd been playing the wrong game entirely. Through the window I could see them clearly. James, my husband of 12 years, sitting at a corner table with her. Sophia Martinez, 28 years old, with that kind of effortless beauty that made other women instinctively fix their hair when she walked into a room. She worked as James's executive assistant, though that title had clearly expanded to include duties not listed in any job description. But it wasn't just the two of them at that table. Sophia had brought friends, 2 other women about her age, all of them laughing over cocktails that probably cost $50 each. I should back up. Let me tell you how I got here, standing in an alley like some kind of private investigator, recording a conversation that would change my entire life. My name is Maya Henderson. 12 years ago, I married James Henderson in a small ceremony at my parents' garden. I was 26, fresh out of architecture school with a portfolio full of dreams and designs that I thought would change skylines. James was 28, a programmer with big ideas about revolutionizing how people interact with smart home technology. We were that couple, you know the type. The ones who spent date nights sketching business plans on napkins, who believed we could build something extraordinary together. And we did build something. In our garage, then in a small rented office, then in a real workspace with actual employees. James wrote the code, but I designed the user interface, the physical products, everything people actually touched and saw. Our first product, a smart home hub that actually looked like furniture instead of a plastic box, won design awards. My designs. My architecture background meant I understood how people actually lived in their spaces, not just how engineers thought they should live. When our company, Henderson Technologies, started getting serious investor attention, we incorporated. James as CEO, me as co-founder and chief design officer, holding 40% equity to his 60. We had 2 beautiful children, Marcus and Lily. Life was exactly what we'd planned. Then James's company, because that's what everyone started calling it, James's company, exploded. A major tech giant wanted to partner with us. The valuation went from 10 million to 50 million to 200 million in just 3 years. Suddenly we were in a world of venture capitalists, board meetings, and investors who wanted James available 24/7. I was pregnant with Lily when James sat me down and said he needed me to step back from the company. Just temporarily, he promised. Just until the kids were older. The investors wanted a CEO who could travel, attend conferences, be the face of the company. I couldn't do that with a newborn and a toddler. It made sense, he said. We'd discussed it. I'd agreed. Sort of. So I stepped back. Temporarily became permanently. Chief Design Officer became former co-founder. I became James Henderson's wife, Marcus and Lily's mother, the woman who made sure there was dinner on the table when James came home from changing the world. My architecture degree gathered dust. My design software went unused. My dreams got smaller and smaller until they fit comfortably in the space between school pickup and bedtime stories. I didn't even notice at first when James started pulling away. The late nights at the office seemed normal. He was building an empire after all. The business trips made sense. The distracted conversations over dinner, the way he'd check his phone during our kids' soccer games, the growing distance in our bed. It all happened so gradually that I couldn't pinpoint when my husband became a stranger who occasionally slept in my house. Then came the classic signs. A text message preview I glimpsed on his phone. Meet me at the usual place with a heart emoji. Lipstick on his collar that wasn't my shade. The way he started working out obsessively, buying expensive clothes, caring about his appearance in ways he hadn't since we were dating. Receipts for romantic dinners I'd never attended, hotel stays in cities where he supposedly had no meetings. When I finally confronted him, James looked at me like I was being ridiculous. Maya, you're being paranoid. Sophia is my assistant. Of course we have meetings. Of course I travel with her. That's literally her job. He turned it around on me the way cheaters always do. You've let yourself go since having the kids. You're always tired, always stressed. Maybe if you took care of yourself the way Sophia takes care of her appearance, you wouldn't be so insecure. That conversation happened 3 weeks ago. I cried for 2 days, then I got angry. Then I got smart. I called a divorce attorney named Rebecca Chin, whose website promised aggressive representation for women in high-asset divorces. I made an appointment. I prepared to file papers. I was ready to end this marriage and walk away with whatever I could get. Probably not much given how long I'd been out of the company. But then I made a decision that changed everything. I decided I wanted to confront James in person, somewhere public where he couldn't gaslight me or manipulate me. So I followed him. Yes, I became that wife, the one who tracks her husband's location and shows up unannounced. And that's how I ended up at Romano's on a Tuesday evening, watching my husband have dinner with his mistress. Only when I got there, I realized Sophia had brought friends. 2 other young women, clearly her close circle, judging by how comfortable they were together. I was about to leave, about to give up on my dramatic confrontation, when I noticed something. The restaurant's side patio had a few outdoor tables, and it was unseasonably warm for October. The window next to their table was open, not wide, just cracked for ventilation. But enough. I sat at an empty patio table, ordered a coffee I didn't want from a confused waiter, and positioned myself where I could hear everything. I pulled out my phone, opened the voice recorder app, and pressed record. What I heard in the next 20 minutes destroyed my world and rebuilt it simultaneously. "So when's the big day?" one of Sophia's friends asked, her voice carrying clearly through the open window. "When are you finally Mrs. Henderson?" Sophia laughed, that musical sound I'd heard her make a dozen times at company events I'd attended back when I was still invited. "Patience, Carmen. These things take time. You can't rush perfection." "Girl, it's been 2 years," the other friend said. "How long are you going to keep this up?" 2 years. They'd been together for 2 years. I'd suspected 6 months, maybe 8. But 2 years meant this started when Lily was 5, when I was still bringing the kids to the office for visits, when I still believed James and I were partners. "As long as it takes to do it right," Sophia replied. "This isn't like the other ones. James is worth $200 million on paper, but most of that's tied up in company equity. I need to be strategic. The other ones." My coffee arrived and I wrapped my shaking hands around the cup, trying to look casual while my entire world cracked apart. "Walk us through it again," Carmen said. "I love hearing how brilliant you are." Sophia's voice took on a different quality, sharper, more businesslike. "Okay, so phase 1 was making myself indispensable. Not just as his assistant, but emotionally. James's wife, Maya, she checked out years ago. Gave up her career, gave up her appearance, became a boring suburban mom. James needed someone who saw him as the genius he is, not just as a paycheck and a sperm donor." I pressed the phone harder against the window, barely breathing. Phase 2 was alienating him from Maya gradually. Little comments here and there. "Does Maya appreciate how hard you work? It must be lonely having a wife who doesn't understand your vision." Nothing obvious, just seeds of doubt. Let him come to the conclusion that his marriage was dead on his own. "And phase 3? The third friend prompted. "Phase 3 is where it gets interesting. See, there's a prenup, but it's from 12 years ago and it's weak. Maya was so in love back then she barely read it. But the real prize isn't the divorce settlement from James. It's her equity." My heart stopped. My equity. The 40% of Henderson Technologies that I'd held since we incorporated. The equity I'd barely thought about in years because I'd stopped getting the quarterly reports, stopped attending board meetings, stopped being part of the company I'd helped build. "Explain that part again," Carmen said. "I don't get how you get her shares." "Okay, so legally, Maya owns 40% as a co-founder. But here's the thing, she hasn't been actively involved in the company for years. She gave up her officer position. She doesn't attend meetings. She's essentially an absentee owner. With the right lawyers, we can argue she abandoned her role and doesn't deserve that equity anymore. It should be redistributed to active participants, meaning James. Can you actually do that? With the right documentation, yes. I've been keeping records for 18 months now. Every board meeting Maya didn't attend. Every decision she wasn't part of. Every time James built something without her input. We're building a case that she's just a housewife with a fancy title, not a real co-founder. I felt physically sick. This wasn't just an affair. This was a hostile takeover of my life. But wait, the third friend interjected. Even if James gets her equity, that doesn't help you. You need him to divorce her first and marry you. Exactly, Sophia said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. That's phase 4. I've been documenting everything. Maya's bad parenting, her emotional instability, her, let's call them mental health struggles. Does she actually have mental health struggles? Carmen asked. Does it matter? I have 6 months of detailed notes about times Maya yelled at the kids, times she forgot school events, times she seemed depressed or anxious. I have texts from James complaining about her mood swings. I've been building a file with my therapist, Dr. Ashworth. He's very understanding about my concerns regarding the children's well-being. My therapist. She had a therapist creating fake documentation about me, about my children. So James divorces Maya, gets full custody because she's unstable, gets her equity because she abandoned the company, and then marries you, Carmen summarized. And you're what, VP of the company by then? Already VP of strategy, Sophia corrected. James created the position for me last quarter. Once we're married, I'll be much more involved in company decisions. James trusts me completely. He thinks this is all his idea. They laughed. All 3 of them laughed like this was a game, like my life and my children's lives were just pieces on a board Sophia was playing. What about the kids? The third friend asked. Are they going to be a problem? Oh, Marcus and Lily adore me. I've made sure of that. I take them shopping. I help with homework. I'm the fun bonus mom while Maya is the stressed-out actual mom who's always saying no. I've been documenting our relationship too. Photos, texts, cute moments. When we go for custody, I'll show I'm already the primary maternal figure in their lives. This is literally genius, Carmen said. How long until you execute? Soon. I'm getting impatient. James is still guilt-ridden about the kids, worried about how divorce will affect them. But I've been pushing him. Another few months of me building my case and Maya being her usual depressed self, and we'll be ready to file. I'm thinking spring. By this time next year, I'll be Mrs. Henderson, stepmother to 2 kids who'll forget Maya eventually, and a very wealthy woman. And then, Carmen asked knowingly. Sophia's laugh was cold. And then I'll have options. James is sweet, but he's not exactly exciting. Once I have the money secured, the company position, the social status, well, let's just say I'll reassess. Maybe James is my forever. Maybe he's my stepping stone. We'll see. They moved on to other topics after that. Gossip about people I didn't know, plans for an upcoming trip. But I barely heard any of it. I sat there on that patio, my coffee going cold, my phone still recording, and felt something shift inside me. I come here planning to file for divorce. Planning to be the woman who stood up for herself and walked away from a cheating husband. I'd been prepared to fight for a fair settlement, for time with my kids, for whatever scraps I could get from a marriage that had died years ago. But everything had changed, because Sophia wasn't just stealing my husband. She was planning to take my children, my legacy, my entire identity. She thought I was a boring suburban mom who'd rolled over and let life happen to me. She thought I was weak, checked out, defeated. She had no idea who she was dealing with. I stood up from that patio table, left $20 for a coffee I'd barely touched, and walked to my car with steady steps. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My mind wasn't scattered. For the first time in years, maybe since I'd left the company, I felt absolutely clear about what I needed to do. I wasn't filing for divorce. Not yet. Because filing for divorce would make me the aggressor, the unstable wife who couldn't handle her husband's success. It would play right into Sophia's narrative. No, I needed to let them think they were winning. I needed to let Sophia and James believe their plan was working perfectly. And while they got comfortable, while they got sloppy, I would build my own case. I called Rebecca Chen from my car. Rebecca, it's Maya Henderson. I'm not filing yet, but I need you to help me with something else. I need to know everything about building a case for fraud, for manipulation, for embezzlement. because I think my husband and his mistress aren't just stealing my marriage. I think they're stealing from the company, and I'm going to prove it. That recording I made at Romano's was just the beginning. I didn't know it yet, but I just captured the confession that would destroy Sophia's perfect plan. Over the next several months, I would become someone I didn't recognize. Someone strategic, calculating, patient. Someone who understood that the best revenge wasn't anger. It was preparation. Sophia wanted to play games with my life? Fine. But she'd made one critical mistake. She'd assumed that because I'd been quiet for years, because I'd stepped back and played the supportive wife, that I'd forgotten how to fight. She'd assumed I was weak. She was about to learn what architects understand better than anyone. Before you can build something new, sometimes you have to tear down what's standing. And I was very good at understanding structures, at finding the weak points, at knowing exactly where to apply pressure to make everything collapse. James thought he was the genius who built an empire. Sophia thought she was the mastermind playing everyone. But they'd both forgotten something important. I was the co-founder. I was the one who designed the foundation of everything they were standing on. And I knew exactly how to make it crumble. That night, after I'd tucked Marcus and Lily into bed, after I'd kissed their foreheads and promised them everything would be okay, I sat in my home office and listened to that recording again. Every word, every laugh, every casual cruelty about me and my children. And I made a list. Not an emotional list, not a revenge fantasy. A strategic, methodical plan of exactly what I needed to do. First, I needed to understand the full scope of Sophia's background. If she'd done this before, if there were other ones as she'd said, I needed to know everything. Second, I needed to secure my position with the company, understand exactly what my equity was worth and what protections I had. Third, I needed documentation of everything. Every lie, every manipulation, every moment where James and Sophia thought they were being clever. And finally, I needed allies. People inside the company who might have their own reasons to want the truth exposed. This wasn't going to be quick. This wasn't going to be easy. But I had something Sophia didn't have. I had the truth. And I had time. Because while she was busy playing the long game, building her case over months, I was about to show her what a real long game looked like. My name is Maya Henderson. I'm a 40-year-old mother of two, a former architect, a co-founder of a company worth $200 million. And I was about to remind everyone, including myself, exactly who I was before I let the world convince me to become smaller. Sophia wanted to take everything from me. My husband, my children, my company, my identity. But she'd made one fatal mistake. She'd told me her entire plan. And now I knew exactly what I was fighting against. More importantly, I knew I was going to win. Not because I was smarter or stronger or more ruthless, but because everything she'd said about me, every assumption she'd made, was wrong. I wasn't checked out. I was patient. I wasn't weak. I was strategic. I wasn't a boring suburban mom who'd given up on life. I was a woman who'd been waiting for a reason to fight back. And Sophia had just given me the best reason in the world. My children, my legacy, and my self-respect. The war was about to begin. And Sophia Martinez had no idea she'd just declared it on the wrong woman. I spent the first week after that recording doing something I hadn't done in years. I watched and I listened. I became invisible in my own home, the way I'd been invisible for so long, except now it was a choice. A strategy. James came home late every night that week, and each time I greeted him with a tired smile. Long day, I'd ask. You must be exhausted. I'd heat up dinner, pour him a glass of wine, ask generic questions about work that required minimal answers. I was playing the role Sophia had written for me, the checked-out wife who'd stopped caring about her husband's world. Maya, James said on Thursday night, and there was something in his voice that made me pause. We need to talk about something. My heart hammered, but I kept my face neutral. Of course. What is it? I think we should consider couples therapy. I feel like we've been distant lately, and I want to fix that. For the kids. For the kids. The phrase Sophia had probably fed him. Plant the idea that you're trying, that you care about the family, so when the divorce comes you look like the reasonable one. That's actually a really good idea, I said. and watched surprise flicker across his face. He'd expected resistance. I've been feeling the distance too. I'd love to work on us. James blinked. Really? You're not going to fight me on this? Why would I fight you on wanting to improve our marriage? I reached across the table and squeezed his hand, forcing warmth into my touch. We've been through so much together. If therapy can help, I'm all for it. That night, after James fell asleep, I texted Rebecca Chin. He's pushing for couples therapy. Should I go? Her response came immediately. Absolutely. Document everything. Record sessions if legal in your state. Let him think you're trying while we build your case. The next morning, I called a private investigator. Not just any investigator, but Carlos Mendoza, a former FBI agent who'd started his own firm specializing in corporate fraud and infidelity cases. His rates were astronomical, but I had access to our joint savings account, and I was going to use every penny if necessary. Carlos met me at a coffee shop in the next town over, somewhere James would never go. He was in his 50s, gray at the temples, with sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything about me in seconds. Mrs. Henderson, he said, shaking my hand. Your message said this was urgent and complex. It is. I slid my phone across the table. Before you listen to this, I need to know something. If what I suspect is true, if my husband and his mistress are not just having an affair but committing fraud, can you find the evidence? That depends on how careful they've been. But in my experience, people having affairs are rarely as careful as they think they are. They get comfortable. Sloppy. He picked up my phone. May I? I nodded and watched his face as he listened to the Romanos recording. His expression didn't change, professional to the core, but I saw his jaw tighten when Sophia talked about taking my children. When it finished, Carlos set down the phone and looked at me with something like respect. Mrs. Henderson, you just handed me a confession to conspiracy, potential fraud, and possibly embezzlement depending on what else we find. This woman, Sophia Martinez, she mentioned she's done this before. Other ones, she said. That's what I need you to find out. I need to know everything about her. Real name, background, history, every man she's been involved with. If there's a pattern, I need to see it. And your husband's business? Carlos asked. You said you suspect fraud? I co-founded Henderson Technologies. I own 40% equity. I haven't been involved in day-to-day operations for years, but I'm still a shareholder. If Sophia's been moving money around, creating fake positions for herself, or helping James hide assets in preparation for divorce, I need documentation. Can you do that? Carlos smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator who just found interesting prey. Mrs. Henderson, I can do better than that. I can get you everything you need to bury them both. But it's going to take time, and it's going to be expensive. I don't care about expensive. I care about thorough. I pulled out a check I'd already written. This is your retainer. Find me everything. And Carlos, they can't know I'm looking. Not yet. They won't. He pocketed the check. One question though. Why not just file for divorce now? You have that recording. Any judge would give you primary custody based on that alone. Because Sophia's been planning this for 2 years. She's built files, documentation, fake therapy notes. If I come at her now, she'll claim the recording is fake, that I'm the unstable one, that I'm making desperate accusations. She'll have her therapist testify about my mental health issues I don't actually have. She'll paint me as paranoid and vindictive. I met his eyes. I need to let her think she's winning until I have so much evidence that there's no story she can tell to make herself look innocent. I need her to get comfortable enough to make mistakes. Carlos nodded slowly. You're going to let them think they've got you beat. Exactly. Sophia thinks I'm weak. I'm going to prove her right, until the moment I prove her very, very wrong. Over the next month, I became an actress in my own life. I went to couples therapy with James, where I played the depressed, anxious wife who couldn't articulate what was wrong. Our therapist, Dr. Palmer, was actually good at her job, and I could see her noticing things, the way James dominated conversations, the way he subtly blamed me for all our problems, the way he checked his phone constantly during our sessions. Maya, Dr. Palmer said during our 3rd session, You've been very quiet today. How are you really feeling? I let tears fill my eyes. It wasn't hard, tapping into the genuine pain underneath my performance. I don't know anymore. I feel like I'm losing myself. Like I gave up everything for this family, and now I don't know who I am. James reached for my hand, the concerned husband. See, this is what I'm talking about. Maya's been depressed since she left the company. I keep suggesting she find a hobby, see friends, but she won't. Is that true, Maya? Dr. Palmer asked gently. I'm just tired, I said, which was true. I was exhausted from playing this role, from pretending I didn't know my husband was planning to destroy me. Maybe James is right. Maybe I need to find myself again. Dr. Palmer made notes. I knew those notes would be subpoenaed eventually, but that was fine. Let there be documentation of my struggle, my depression, my honesty about my mental state. It would make Sophia's fabricated therapy notes look even more suspicious by contrast. Meanwhile, Carlos was working. Every few days I'd get an encrypted email with updates. Sophia's real background was emerging, and it was even worse than I'd suspected. Her real name was Sophie and Castellano. She'd changed it legally 5 years ago after her second divorce. Husband number 1. Marcus Chen, tech entrepreneur, married for 18 months. Sophia had been his executive assistant. Divorced him, walked away with a $3 million settlement and a non-disclosure agreement. Husband number 2. David Rothschild, real estate developer, married for 2 years. Again, started as his assistant. Divorce settlement, $5 million and a penthouse in Manhattan, also with an NDA. Both men refused to speak to Carlos about their marriages. The NDAs made sure of that. But their divorce lawyers were more talkative off the record. The same pattern in both cases. Sophia befriended the wives, got hired by the husbands, seduced them, systematically documented evidence of the wives' supposed instability, filed for divorce on the men's behalf, secured custody battles that painted the actual mothers as unfit, then walked away wealthy. There's more, Carlos told me during our weekly meeting at the coffee shop that had become our regular spot. I found her consultant, a man named Harrison Webb. He's basically a coach for women who want to marry and divorce wealthy men. He's been sued twice for his services, but nothing stuck. Technically, what he does is legal, he just teaches strategy. Strategy, I repeated, tasting the bitterness of the word. He teaches women how to destroy families. Exactly, and Sophia is his star pupil. According to my sources, she's been consulting with Webb throughout her relationship with your husband. There are emails, payment records, the whole thing. Can we get those emails? Carlos hesitated. Legally? That's complicated. But there are ways. Give me another few weeks. The business investigation was revealing even more. Carlos had partnered with a forensic accountant, a sharp woman named Jennifer Park who specialized in uncovering corporate fraud. What she found made my blood run cold. Sophia hadn't just been giving James advice. She'd been actively restructuring the company's finances through her brother, Marco Castellano, who ran a consulting firm that Henderson Technologies had hired 18 months ago. On paper, Marco's firm provided legitimate services: market analysis, strategic planning, efficiency consulting. In reality, they were billing the company for work that was never done and funneling money into offshore accounts. We're talking about $8 million over 18 months, Jennifer told me, showing me spreadsheets that made my head spin. Small enough amounts that they didn't trigger immediate red flags, but consistent enough that it's clearly systematic. And look at this. She pointed to a signature line. James approved every single payment. Does that mean he knew? I asked, dreading the answer. Either he knew or Sophia was forging his approval on the documents. Either way, it's fraud. If he knew, he's complicit. If he didn't know and she forged his signature, that's embezzlement and forgery. I thought about the man I'd married 12 years ago, the one who'd promised to build something meaningful together. Would that James have knowingly stolen from his own company? Or had Sophia manipulated him so thoroughly that he'd lost his moral compass entirely? There's something else, Jennifer said carefully. Your equity. I pulled the corporate records, And there have been 3 investment rounds in the past 2 years that significantly diluted your ownership. You should have been notified and given the opportunity to maintain your percentage by investing more or approving the dilution. Were you? No, I said slowly. I haven't received any corporate communications in at least 3 years. Then they violated your shareholder rights. Repeatedly. Your 40% is now closer to 22% because of these rounds. But if you didn't consent to the dilution, it might be voidable. My mind raced. What does that mean in practical terms? It means you could potentially sue to restore your original equity percentage. But more importantly, it means James and the board violated their fiduciary duty to you as a shareholder. That's leverage, Maya. Significant leverage. I was building an arsenal. The Romanos recording. Sophia's history of targeting wealthy men. Evidence of corporate fraud and embezzlement. Violation of my shareholder rights. Documentation from our couples therapy showing James's subtle manipulation. And Carlos wasn't done yet. There's one more thing I'm working on, he told me in our 6th week of investigation. Sophia's been spending a lot of time with the kids, right? Taking them places, buying them things? Yes, I said, feeling my chest tighten. Every weekend James has them, Sophia's there. Marcus told me last week that Sophia took them shopping and bought them new tablets. He was so excited. Did you give permission for that? No, but I didn't think I could stop it. James is their father, and when they're with him... Maya, Carlos interrupted gently. What if I told you Sophia's been documenting her time with your kids and submitting it to a family court consultant as evidence of her role as their primary caregiver? The coffee shop seemed to tilt. What? I found the consultant through some connections. Dr. Richard Ashworth, the therapist Sophia mentioned in that recording. He's been building a file on your family for 6 months. And it's not pretty. According to his notes, which I obtained through channels I won't specify, he's prepared to testify that you show signs of severe depression, possible neglect of your children, and that Sophia has stepped in as a stabilizing maternal figure. But he's never met me, I said, my voice shaking. He's never evaluated me. How can he testify about my mental state? Based on Sophia's reports as a concerned party and James's corroboration as the father. In family court, that kind of testimony can be powerful, especially if you don't have your own expert to counter it. So we get our own expert. Already arranged. Dr. Sarah Williams, child psychologist and family court veteran. She'll do a comprehensive evaluation of you, the kids, and your home environment. We'll have her report ready to counter anything Ashworth produces. I felt like I was drowning in strategy and counter-strategy, moves and counter-moves. This wasn't just a divorce anymore. It was psychological warfare. How much longer? I asked Carlos. How much longer until we have everything we need? 2 months. Maybe 3. I want to be absolutely certain we have an airtight case before you make any moves. Because Maya, when you do this, when you present all this evidence, Sophia and James are going to come at you with everything they have. You need to be ready for that. I'll be ready, I promised. But being ready meant continuing to play my role. Continuing to be the depressed, checked-out wife while my husband planned my destruction. And it was getting harder every day. One night, about 8 weeks into my investigation, James came home earlier than usual. I was in the kitchen making dinner, and I heard him before I saw him. He was on the phone, his voice low but urgent. No, Sophia, you need to be patient. I told you I can't just file out of nowhere. Dr. Palmer needs to document Maya's issues for a few more weeks. Then we'll have what we need. Pause. I know you're frustrated, baby, but we have to do this right. If we rush it, she might fight back harder than we expect. I stood frozen at the stove, the wooden spoon in my hand dripping sauce onto the floor. The kids are fine, James continued. They love you, you know they do. Marcus keeps asking when you're coming over again. No, Maya doesn't suspect anything. She's too wrapped up in her own depression to notice what's happening. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. Love you too. He walked into the kitchen and found me standing there, and for a split second I saw panic in his eyes. Then his expression smoothed into casual affection. Hey honey, that smells great. How was your day? Fine, I managed. Yours. Exhausting. Board meeting ran long. He kissed my cheek, and I had to force myself not to recoil. I'm going to shower before dinner. As soon as he left the room, I gripped the counter and let myself feel it. The rage, the betrayal, the absolute violation of having my husband discuss destroying me like it was a business transaction. Then I took a deep breath and pushed it all down, back into the box where I kept every genuine emotion these days. 2 more months, I told myself. Just 2 more months of this performance, and then I would destroy them both. That night, after James fell asleep, I snuck into his home office. He kept his laptop there, usually locked, but I'd watched him enter his password enough times to memorize it. Marcus's birthday plus the year we incorporated the company. Sentimental in a twisted way. His email was a goldmine. Messages between him and Sophia going back years, increasingly intimate, increasingly explicit. Plans for their future together. Discussions about how to handle the Maya problem. And most damning of all, emails to lawyers asking about expediting divorce proceedings, minimizing settlements, securing full custody. I copied everything to an encrypted drive, my hands shaking so badly I could barely work the keyboard. This was it. This was the evidence that would prove premeditation, conspiracy, everything we needed. When I finally climbed back into bed next to my husband, he stirred slightly. "Maya," he mumbled, half asleep. "I'm here," I whispered. "Good," he said, and put his arm around me the way he used to when we were young and in love and building dreams together. I lay there in the darkness, in the arms of a man planning to take everything from me, and I smiled. Because James and Sophia thought they were so smart, so careful, so strategic. But they'd made one critical error. They'd underestimated me. They'd assumed that because I'd been quiet, because I'd stepped back, because I'd played the good wife for so long, that I'd forgotten how to be anything else. They were about to learn the difference between being weak and choosing your battles. And I'd just chosen mine. The war was coming, and I was going to win. The breaking point came on a cold morning in February, exactly 3 months after that night at Romano's. I was dropping the kids at school when Lily, my 7-year-old, said something that made my carefully constructed patience shatter. "Mommy, Sophia says we're going to live with her and Daddy soon." She showed us pictures of our new rooms in her apartment. "Mine has a princess bed." I pulled the car over so abruptly that Marcus, my 10-year-old, lurched forward in his seatbelt. "What did you say, sweetheart?" Lily's face crumpled, sensing she'd said something wrong. "Sophia said it was a secret, but I thought you knew. She said you and Daddy are separating, and we're going to live with them most of the time because you're too sad to take care of us properly." My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. "And what do you think about that, Lily?" "I don't want to leave you, Mommy," she whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. "But Sophia says it's what's best. She says you need time to feel better." Marcus, always the protective older brother, spoke up. "I told Sophia we wanted to stay with Mom. She got really angry, Mom, like scary angry. Her whole face changed. Then she said we were too young to understand what was best for us." I hugged both my children tightly. "Listen to me very carefully. You are not leaving me. You are not going to live with Sophia. I don't care what anyone has told you. I am your mother, and I will always fight for you. Do you understand?" They nodded, clinging to me. "Good. Now let's get you to school, and tonight we're going to have a special family dinner. Just the 3 of us. Pizza and ice cream. Okay?" Their smiles were watery but genuine. After I dropped them off, I sat in the school parking lot and called Rebecca Chin. "We're done waiting," I said without preamble. "Sophia just told my children they're moving in with her. She's already decorating rooms for them. We file today." "Maya, are you sure?" Carlos said he needed another few weeks to. "I don't care. My children are being manipulated and traumatized. We have enough evidence to destroy them both. It's time." There was a pause. Then Rebecca's voice came back, sharper, more focused. "Okay, come to my office now. We're going to build a filing that will make their heads spin. And Maya, it's going to get ugly. They're going to fight back with everything they have. Let them try." 3 hours later, I was sitting in Rebecca's conference room, surrounded by documents, recordings, and evidence that represented 3 months of investigation. Jennifer Park, the forensic accountant, was there. So was Carlos Mendoza. And Dr. Sarah Williams, the child psychologist who'd been conducting her evaluation of our family. "Let's review what we have," Rebecca said, spreading files across the table. First, the Romanos recording. Sophia confessing to her entire plan, including conspiracy to commit fraud and manipulate custody proceedings. This alone is devastating. Second, Jennifer continued, evidence of $8 million in fraudulent billing through Sophia's brother's company. We have proof that James approved payments for services never rendered, and bank records showing the money flowing to offshore accounts connected to Sophia's family. Third, Carlos added, Sophia's history. 2 previous marriages to wealthy men, both following the exact same pattern. Both ending in significant settlements and NDAs. We found the consultant she's been working with, Harrison Webb, and we have email records of her paying him for coaching on how to execute this plan. Fourth, Dr. Williams said, my evaluation of Maya and the children. I've spent 6 weeks with this family, and I can testify unequivocally that Maya is a devoted, capable mother with no signs of the depression or instability that Dr. Ashworth claims to have documented. More importantly, I interviewed the children, and they clearly expressed that while they like Sophia, they want to live primarily with their mother. Marcus specifically mentioned feeling pressured by Sophia to say he preferred living with his father. And finally, Rebecca said, pulling out another folder, we have the violation of shareholder rights. Maya's equity was diluted without her consent or notification. That alone is grounds for a major lawsuit against the company. Combined with everything else, we have James and Sophia on fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, shareholder rights violations, and attempted custody manipulation. I looked at the evidence spread before me, representing 3 months of my life spent being someone I barely recognized. 3 months of lying next to a man who was planning to take my children. 3 months of playing weak while building a case that would obliterate their plans. What happens when we file? I asked. Rebecca smiled, and it was predatory. We file for divorce with a motion for emergency custody based on parental alienation and emotional abuse of the children. We file a criminal complaint about the embezzlement. We file a civil suit against Sophia personally for fraud and conspiracy. And we file a shareholder lawsuit against Henderson Technologies for violation of your rights. We hit them from every direction simultaneously, so they don't have time to hide evidence or craft a defense. They'll claim the recording is fake, I said, that I'm making everything up because I'm bitter about the affair. They can claim whatever they want, Carlos replied, but we have corroborating evidence for every single allegation. Phone records, bank records, emails, testimony from experts, documentation from multiple sources. This isn't he said, she said anymore. This is a documented conspiracy. What about James? I asked quietly. What happens to him? Rebecca's expression softened slightly. That depends on how much he cooperates. If he was Sophia's victim as much as you were, if she manipulated him the way she manipulated her previous husbands, he might be able to negotiate a deal. But if he was a willing participant in the fraud and the custody manipulation, he's going to face serious consequences. Criminal charges, loss of his company, loss of custody of his children. I thought about the man I'd married, the one who'd cried at our wedding, who'd held our babies like they were made of glass, who'd promised to build a life with me. Was that man still in there somewhere, buried under Sophia's manipulation? Or had he always been capable of this level of betrayal, and I'd just been too blind to see it? I don't care about protecting James anymore, I said finally. He made his choices. He decided our children were acceptable collateral damage in his midlife crisis. Whatever happens to him, he brought on himself. Then we're ready, Rebecca said. I'll file everything first thing tomorrow morning. By noon, James and Sophia will be served. And Maya? You need to prepare yourself. They're going to come at you viciously. Sophia is going to claim you're crazy, that the recording is fake, that you're making everything up. James is going to play the victim, say he was seduced, say you're trying to destroy him out of jealousy. It's going to hurt. I've been hurting for 3 months, I replied. At least now I get to fight back. That night, I took Marcus and Lily out for pizza like I'd promised. We went to their favorite place, a loud, cheerful restaurant with terrible pizza and arcade games. I watched them play, laughing and carefree, not knowing that tomorrow their world would change forever. Not knowing that I was about to blow up their father's life. "Mom," Marcus said, coming over with tickets from the arcade. "Are you and Dad really getting divorced?" I should have known he'd heard things. He was 10, old enough to pick up on tension, on whispered arguments, on the distance between his parents. "Yes, sweetheart, we are. But I need you to know something. This has nothing to do with you or your sister. Your dad and I both love you very much. That will never change." "Is it because of Sophia?" he asked, too perceptive for his own good. "It's complicated, buddy. But I promise you, no matter what happens, you and Lily are my priority. Always. You're going to hear some things in the next few weeks, things that might be confusing or scary. But I need you to remember that I will always tell you the truth. Okay? I will never lie to you." He nodded, processing this with the seriousness of a child forced to grow up too fast. "Lily and I want to stay with you, Mom. We told Sophia that, but she said we didn't get to choose." "You do get to choose," I said firmly. "And a judge is going to listen to what you want. Sophia doesn't get to decide your life. Neither does Dad. You have a voice in this, and I'm going to make sure everyone hears it." That night, after I tucked them into bed, I stood in their doorway and watched them sleep. Tomorrow I would become the woman who destroyed their father. The woman who exposed his affair, his fraud, his plans to take them away from me. They might hate me for it someday. They might blame me for breaking up our family, even though I wasn't the one who'd betrayed our vows. But they would grow up knowing their mother had fought for them. They would know that when someone tried to take everything from me, I didn't roll over and accept it. I fought back with everything I had. I went to bed early that night, knowing I'd need rest for what was coming. James came home late, as usual, smelling of Sophia's perfume, as usual. He kissed my forehead like he'd done 1,000 times before. "Good night, Maya," he said. "Goodbye, James," I replied. He didn't catch the distinction. At 9 a.m. the next morning, Rebecca Chin filed our documents with the court. By 10 a.m., the divorce papers, the emergency custody motion, the criminal complaint, and the civil lawsuit were all official court record. By 11 a.m., a process server was walking into Henderson Technologies headquarters. I know because Carlos had someone there to document it. The video he sent me showed James in a meeting, Sophia by his side as always, when the conference room door opened and the process server walked in. "James Henderson, you've been served." James's face as he opened the envelope and saw the first page, the divorce petition, was almost comical. Confusion, then shock, then something like fear. He started flipping through pages faster and faster, seeing the custody motion, the fraud allegations, the embezzlement charges. Then Sophia was served with her own lawsuit. Civil conspiracy, fraud, attempted parental alienation. Her perfectly composed face cracked, just for a moment, and I saw real panic there. "This is insane," James said, loud enough for Carlos's camera to catch. "Maya doesn't have the balls to—" He stopped himself, reading more. "How does she know about the offshore accounts? How does she have financial records?" Sophia grabbed the papers from him, scanning them frantically. Then she went white. "The recording. She has the recording from Romano's. From 3 months ago. James. She's been investigating us for 3 months." Watching her realize she'd been outmaneuvered, that the weak, depressed wife she'd dismissed had been strategically building a case against her this entire time, gave me more satisfaction than I'd expected. My phone rang. "James." I let it go to voicemail. He called again, and again. Then texts started coming through. "Maya, what the hell is this? You can't be serious with these allegations. We need to talk. Now. You're making a huge mistake. I'll destroy you in court if you don't drop this." The texts got increasingly desperate, then angry, then threatening. I forwarded every single one to Rebecca, who responded with a simple message: "Keep them coming. This is evidence of harassment." At noon, My phone rang with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Maya. It was Sophia's voice, no longer the sweet, professional tone she used at the office. This voice was cold, vicious. You have no idea what you've just done. That recording is fake and everyone is going to know it. You're a bitter, jealous woman trying to destroy your husband because he finally found someone who actually appreciates him. Is that the story you're going with? I asked calmly. That I fabricated a recording where you detail your entire plan, including your history of seducing wealthy married men, your consultant Harrison Webb, and your brother's fraudulent billing scheme? That's a very thorough fabrication. She was silent for a moment. You've been investigating me for 3 months. Ever since I heard you tell your friends how you were going to take my children and my company. Did you really think I'd just let that happen, Sophia? Or should I call you Sophie Castellano? I heard her sharp intake of breath. You can't prove any of this. I can prove all of it. Bank records, emails, testimony from your previous husband's lawyers, evaluation from a child psychologist, forensic accounting that traces every dollar your brother stole. You taught me something valuable, Sophia. You taught me that the quiet ones, the ones who seem weak and checked out, are sometimes the most dangerous. Because we're patient. We wait. We plan. And then we strike when you least expect it. James will never believe you, she hissed. He loves me. James is being served with evidence that you've stolen $8 million from his company and manipulated him for 2 years. Let's see how much he loves you when he realizes you've destroyed his business and his reputation. You bitch, she spat. I will destroy you in court. I have documentation from Dr. Ashworth about your mental illness, about your neglect of those children. You mean the fraudulent therapy notes from a therapist I've never met? Good luck with that. I have an actual evaluation from Dr. Sarah Williams, who spent 6 weeks with my family and will testify that I'm a devoted, capable mother. Your fake documentation is going to look even more suspicious when my real evaluation contradicts it. I could hear her breathing hard on the other end of the line. This isn't over, Maya. You're right. It's not over. It's just beginning. And Sophia, you're going to lose. Because everything you said at Romano's about me being weak, being checked out, being too depressed to fight back, you were wrong. I wasn't weak. I was gathering evidence. I wasn't checked out. I was watching you, and I wasn't too depressed to fight. I was choosing my moment. This is my moment. See you in court. I hung up and blocked her number, my hands shaking with adrenaline. 3 months of playing a role, of being someone I wasn't, of swallowing my rage and my pain every single day, and I'd finally dropped the mask. The next few days were chaos. James moved out immediately, taking up residence in a hotel since he couldn't stay with Sophia without it looking worse for both of them. His lawyer, an expensive firm known for representing wealthy men in divorces, filed a response claiming that I was having a mental breakdown, that the allegations were fabricated, that James was the victim of a vindictive wife. The company's board of directors called an emergency meeting. As a 40% shareholder, I had every right to attend. I hadn't set foot in Henderson Technologies in 5 years, but I walked into that boardroom like I owned the place. Because technically, I did own a significant portion of it. The board members looked shocked to see me. Most of them were newer, brought in during James's expansion, and probably thought of me as James's housewife if they thought of me at all. Mrs. Henderson, the chairman said carefully, this is unexpected. I'm sure it is, Richard. But as you know, I'm a co-founder and shareholder of this company, and given the serious allegations of fraud and embezzlement, I thought I should be present. James was already there, sitting at the head of the table like he always did. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 days. When our eyes met, I saw something I'd never seen before in my husband's face. Genuine fear. Maya, you don't need to be here, he said. This is a company matter. Fraud committed by the CEO and his executive assistant, stealing $8 million from company funds, is absolutely a matter for shareholders, I replied, taking a seat. Especially the shareholder whose equity was illegally diluted without notification or consent. The chairman cleared his throat. Yes, about that. We've been reviewing the allegations in your lawsuit, and our legal team has some concerns about the investment rounds conducted over the past 2 years. Concerns, I repeated. That's an interesting word for systematic violation of shareholder rights. For the next hour, I watched James's empire begin to crumble. The board demanded answers about the payments to Marco Castellano's consulting firm. They demanded to see proof of services rendered. They demanded to know why I hadn't been notified about the equity dilution. And James, smooth, charismatic James who could talk his way through any business problem, had no good answers. Sophia handled those contracts, he kept saying. She assured me the work was legitimate. So you're claiming your executive assistant defrauded the company without your knowledge? Richard asked skeptically. I trusted her. She manipulated me, manipulated all of us. It was fascinating, watching him throw Sophia under the bus to save himself. Yesterday he'd been texting me about how much he loved her, how we were going to destroy me together. Today she was the villain who'd deceived him. Mr. Henderson, Richard said finally, the board is going to recommend that you take a leave of absence while we conduct a full investigation. Jennifer Park has agreed to do a comprehensive forensic audit. If the allegations are proven, we'll have no choice but to remove you as CEO. James's face went ashen. You can't be serious. I built this company. We built this company, I corrected quietly. You and me together. You just spent 5 years making everyone forget that. After the meeting, James cornered me in the parking garage. Maya, please, we need to talk. Really talk without lawyers. I have nothing to say to you. Then listen. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I recognized from years of marriage. It meant he was desperate. I messed up. I know that. Sophia, she got in my head. Made me think you didn't care anymore, that you checked out of our marriage, of the company, of everything. I was weak and stupid, and I hurt you. But $8 million in fraud. I didn't know, Maya. I swear to God. I didn't know she was stealing. But you knew she was manipulating custody proceedings. You knew she was building fake documentation about my mental health. You knew she was planning to take our children from me. He couldn't meet my eyes. She said it was for the best. That the kids needed stability you couldn't provide right now. You thought taking my children away from me was for their own good? My voice was deadly calm. You thought letting your mistress play mother to my babies while you painted me as unstable was acceptable? No, it wasn't like that. James, I have recordings of you discussing strategy with Sophia. I have emails where you talk about the custody battle like it's a business deal. I have text messages where you coach each other on what to say in therapy sessions. You knew exactly what you were doing. I was thinking about what was best for the kids, he tried. You were thinking about what was easiest for you. Taking the kids meant keeping Sophia happy. Getting my equity meant more money for your new life together. Painting me as unstable meant you'd look like the reasonable one. This was all calculated, James. Just like everything else you've done for the past 2 years. Maya, please. No. You made your choices. You chose Sophia over me. You chose your ego over our family. You chose easy money over integrity. Now you get to live with the consequences. The kids, he said desperately. You can't keep me from my kids. I'm not keeping you from them. You did that yourself when you let Sophia tell them they were moving in with her, when you allowed her to manipulate and pressure them, when you made our daughter cry because she thought she was losing her mother. You destroyed their sense of security for a woman who was using you. How do you think that's going to play in family court? I walked toward my car, done with this conversation, done with his excuses. I loved you, he called after me. I still love you. I turned back one more time. No, James. You loved the idea of me as your supportive wife, raising your children while you played tech genius. You never loved the real me, the woman who co-founded this company with you, who had her own dreams and ambitions. You loved me most when I was smallest. Well, I'm not small anymore, and you're about to find out exactly how big I can be. The custody hearing came 2 weeks later. Emergency motions move fast when there's evidence of parental alienation and child manipulation. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, less dramatic. Just Judge Patricia Morrison, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and zero patience for nonsense, and our lawyers, and us. Rebecca presented our case methodically. The Romanos recording, where Sophia detailed her plan to take my children. The testimony from Dr. Williams, stating that Marcus and Lily clearly preferred living with me and showed signs of stress when discussing Sophia. The evidence of Sophia telling my children they were moving in with her, showing them decorated rooms, essentially coaching them to accept a new living situation without my consent or knowledge. James's lawyer tried to paint me as unstable, bringing out Dr. Ashworth's supposed documentation of my mental health issues. But when Rebecca cross-examined him, it fell apart. Dr. Ashworth, how many times have you personally evaluated Mrs. Henderson? I haven't personally evaluated her, but based on reports from concerned parties. So you've never met her, never conducted a clinical interview, never observed her with her children, yet you're prepared to testify about her mental state. Miss Torres provided detailed observations, and Mr. Henderson corroborated. Miss Torres, the woman having an affair with Mrs. Henderson's husband, the woman who told her friends she was planning to take Mrs. Henderson's children and her company. That's your source. Judge Morrison interrupted. Dr. Ashworth, are you seriously telling me you wrote a psychological evaluation of a woman you've never met, based solely on information from people who had a vested interest in making her look unstable? Your Honor, in cases where direct evaluation isn't possible. This isn't a case where direct evaluation wasn't possible. Mrs. Henderson was available for evaluation. You chose not to evaluate her because your findings were predetermined. Your testimony is inadmissible. I watched James's lawyer scramble to recover, but the damage was done. Their entire strategy had been built on painting me as mentally unstable, and their expert witness had just been discredited. Then Marcus and Lily were interviewed by the judge in her chambers. I wasn't present, but Rebecca told me later what they'd said. How Sophia scared them sometimes when she got angry. How they missed me when they were with their dad. How Sophia kept telling them they'd be happier living with her, but they just wanted things to go back to normal. When Judge Morrison returned to the courtroom, her expression was stern. I've heard enough. Mr. Henderson, I'm appalled by what I've learned here today. You allowed your girlfriend to manipulate your children, to tell them they were leaving their mother, to essentially groom them to accept a custody arrangement that hadn't been decided by any court. That's not parenting. That's alienation. Your Honor, I didn't realize. You didn't realize your girlfriend was showing your children their new bedrooms in her apartment? You didn't realize she was telling them their mother was too sick to care for them properly? Mr. Henderson, either you're lying or you're the most negligent father I've seen in this courtroom, and I've seen many. She turned to her paperwork, making notes. Primary physical custody is awarded to Mrs. Henderson. Mr. Henderson will have supervised visitation every other weekend until he completes a parenting course and demonstrates he can prioritize his children's well-being over his relationship with Miss Torres. Furthermore, Miss Torres is to have no contact with the minor children until this court determines otherwise. James looked like he'd been punched. Your Honor, please, they're my children. And you treated them like bargaining chips in your affair. You put your girlfriend's manipulation scheme over their emotional well-being. When you can prove you're ready to be a father first and Miss Torres's partner second, we can revisit custody arrangements. Until then, this is my ruling. Outside the courtroom, James tried to approach Marcus and Lily, who were waiting with my sister. Lily hid behind my sister's legs, and Marcus just stared at his father with an expression that broke my heart. Not anger, just disappointment. Kids, James said, his voice breaking, I'm so sorry. I love you so much. Then why did you let Sophia tell us we were leaving Mom? Marcus asked, and the simple question held more accusation than any adult could have delivered. James had no answer. The criminal investigation into the embezzlement took longer, but the outcome was inevitable. Jennifer Park's forensic audit proved that $8 million had been stolen through Marco Castellano's fake consulting firm. The money trail led directly to offshore accounts controlled by Sophia's family. Sophia tried to claim she'd had no knowledge of her brother's fraud, that he'd acted independently. But the emails between her and Marco discussing how much to bill and when destroyed that defense. Harrison Webb, her consultant, was subpoenaed, and while he tried to claim client confidentiality, The judge ruled that coaching someone on how to commit fraud wasn't protected communication. Sophia was arrested on charges of conspiracy to commit fraud, embezzlement, and wire fraud. Her bail was set at $500,000. She couldn't make it. The woman who'd planned to walk away with millions sat in jail while awaiting trial. James cooperated with prosecutors, claiming he'd been manipulated and defrauded along with the company. They offered him a deal: testify against Sophia, pay restitution, resign as CEO, and he'd avoid prison time. He took it without hesitation. Watching him testify against the woman he'd claimed to love, throwing her under the bus to save himself, I felt something close to pity. Not for him, but for who he'd become. The man I'd married wouldn't have done this. But that man had died somewhere along the way, buried under success and ego and Sophia's manipulation. The civil lawsuit took another 6 months to resolve. Henderson Technologies settled with me for the full restoration of my 40% equity at current valuation, which had actually increased once the fraud was discovered and corrected. The company bought out my shares for $80 million. $80 million for a company I'd helped build and then been systematically erased from. It felt like blood money, compensation for years of being invisible, being dismissed, being treated like I hadn't contributed to everything we'd built together. Sophia was convicted on all counts. She received 7 years in prison and was ordered to pay full restitution. Her 2 previous ex-husbands, learning about her pattern, filed civil suits to void their NDAs and reclaim their settlements. Harrison Webb's consulting business was shut down after media exposure of what he actually taught. And Sophia's carefully constructed life of manipulating wealthy men crumbled completely. James lost Henderson Technologies. The board voted him out and a new CEO was brought in. He lost his reputation in the tech industry. Who would trust a CEO who'd allowed his company to be defrauded for 2 years? He kept enough money to live comfortably, but the empire he'd built was gone, taken down by the mistress he'd chosen over his family. Our divorce was finalized 9 months after I'd filed. James didn't fight me on anything after the custody hearing. He knew he'd lost, and fighting would only make everything worse. I got primary custody of the kids, the house, substantial child support and alimony, and my freedom. As for me, I took my $80 million and did something I'd been dreaming about for years. I started my own architecture firm, Henderson and Associates, specializing in affordable housing design. The thing I'd always wanted to do, before I'd made myself small enough to fit into James's shadow. My first project was a housing development for single mothers transitioning out of domestic violence situations. Beautiful, functional homes that proved architecture could be both affordable and dignified. Marcus and Lily helped me pick paint colors for the model home. I also started something else, a consultancy for women going through high-conflict divorces. Not as a lawyer, but as someone who'd lived through it and won. I helped women document abuse, build cases, find the right experts. I taught them what I'd learned. That being quiet isn't the same as being weak, that patience is a weapon, and that the person who looks like they're losing is sometimes just waiting for the right moment to win. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, I was invited to speak at a women's business conference. The topic was rebuilding after betrayal. I stood on that stage, looking out at hundreds of women, and told my story. Not all of it, some details were too personal, but enough. They underestimated me because I was quiet, I said, because I'd stepped back from my career, because I seemed depressed and checked out. But quiet doesn't mean weak. It means I was listening, watching, learning. And when the time came to fight, I fought with everything I had. Not out of revenge, though I won't lie and say revenge didn't feel good. But because my children deserved a mother who would fight for them. Because I deserved to reclaim what I'd built. Because sometimes the only way to move forward is to burn down what's broken and build something new from the ashes. The applause was deafening. After the speech, woman after woman came up to me with their own stories. Husbands who'd cheated, partners who'd stolen, families who'd been torn apart by betrayal. And I listened to each one, gave what advice I could, and reminded them that they were stronger than they knew. Marcus and Lily are doing well now. It took time, therapy, a lot of conversations about what happened and why. They see their father every other weekend, and the relationship is slowly healing. James completed his parenting course, proved he could prioritize them over his own desires, and the court relaxed the supervision requirements. He's dating someone new, an appropriate relationship this time, and he's learning to be a better father. We'll never be friends, James and I, but we're functional co-parents, and that's enough. As for Sophia, I received a letter from her 6 months into her prison sentence. I don't know how she got my address, but the letter found me. It was full of justifications, excuses, claims that I'd overreacted, that she'd never really meant to hurt my children, that James had been equally to blame for everything. I read it once, then burned it in my fireplace while drinking a very expensive glass of wine. Some people never learn. Some people never take responsibility for the destruction they cause. Sophia would spend her prison sentence believing she was the victim, that I'd somehow cheated by outplaying her at her own game. And that was fine with me. Her delusions weren't my problem anymore. 2 years after everything fell apart and came back together, I was putting Lily to bed when she asked me a question. "Mommy, are you happy now?" I thought about it, really thought about it. Was I happy? My marriage was gone. The life I'd planned was destroyed. I'd had to become someone harder, more calculating, more strategic than I'd ever wanted to be. But I had my children. I had my career back, building something meaningful. I had my self-respect. I had proof that I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. "Yes, sweetheart," I told her. "I'm happy. Are you?" "Yeah," she said, snuggling into her covers. "I like it when you smile now. You smile a lot more than you used to." After she fell asleep, I walked downstairs to my home office and looked at the plans spread across my desk. A new housing project, bigger and more ambitious than anything I'd designed before. This was mine. Not James's and mine. Just mine. My phone buzzed with a message from a woman I'd been consulting with. Her husband was hiding assets, planning to leave her with nothing after 20 years of marriage. She'd been scared, convinced she couldn't fight back, convinced she'd lose everything. But I'd taught her what I learned. Document everything. Stay 3 steps ahead. Don't let them see you preparing until you're ready to strike. And most importantly, never underestimate your own strength. Her message said, "I filed today. He has no idea what's coming. Thank you for teaching me how to fight." I smiled and typed back, "You already knew how to fight. I just reminded you, because that's what I'd learned through all of this. I'd always been strong. I'd always been capable. I'd always been enough. I'd just forgotten for a while, let other people convince me I was smaller than I was. James and Sophia didn't destroy me. They couldn't, because the strength I needed to survive them had been there all along, waiting for the moment I'd need it most. And when that moment came, when I stood outside Romano's restaurant and heard Sophia detail her plans to take everything from me, I didn't break. I planned. I prepared. I fought. And I won. Not because I was smarter or richer or luckier, but because I refused to be the woman they thought I was. I refused to be weak, to be a victim, to be someone whose life could be stolen while she stood by and let it happen. My name is Maya Henderson. I'm 42 years old. I'm a mother, an architect, a survivor, and a fighter. I'm the woman who let her husband and his mistress think they'd won, right up until the moment I destroyed them both. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat, because some battles choose you, and when they do, you have 2 choices: surrender or fight with everything you have. I chose to fight, and I'm still standing.